what I'm doing today, please do let me know as soon as possible, and I'll do what I can to resize my screen to make it easier for you to see. Usually I'm just showing the web browser, but today, because we'll be using so many different applications, I have my whole screen showing so that I don't have to worry about whether you can see what I'm doing as I hop from one place to another. Sorry, just a moment. Sorry, we're just a request to turn off of widescreen, so I'm going to pause my screen for a second and see if I can change my monitor off widescreen mode. Just a moment. That's horrible. I can't work like that.
No, that's not the. That's not. Okay.
No, it's too blurry. It's horrible.
Hold on.
Get it. Okay, there we go. So now I need to. It still looks awful. This is a huge waste of time. I don't know what setting to use. Or leave it there. Leave it there. Okay. Hopefully that works better for you. It's going to be a little disconcerting for me to not have full access to my usual screen, but we'll roll with it. So the first thing on my agenda is going to be the simplest thing, and that is print templates. The print templates are just like regular design templates. They have all the same setup options, so I just went to Setup and then Manage Design Templates. And the only difference between a print template and a regular template is how you choose to customize it and whether or not you use it as a print template when you select it in your view setup. Otherwise, there's absolutely nothing special about a print template versus a regular template. Some of the things that you want to think about when you're creating a print template is how much clutter is going to be on the screen, because people get really frustrated when they're printing out a small amount of information, but it ends up being pages and pages of actual printed information because of all of the extra stuff on the page. Part of the reason why we have print templates to begin with is that the software automatically strips certain kinds of information out when it prints, like any footer message you have, any automatic menus and links that are put in by the system to optimize the format of the page for printing and make it so that we're not wasting a lot of paper and not cluttering up the page. One of the best ways to ensure a nice clean page for printing is to use the custom page header and footer options, even if you don't normally know how to use HTML. The simple option of entering in some basic empty HTML into your custom page header and footer will work to erase the regular header and footer that normally displays when you are viewing a particular record. So I'm going to go to open a specific record. version. So the obvious difference is all of the menus that I have in this regular template has been erased. Even if I go to a standard, this one has no header. If I go to a more standard looking page such as this one, the giant block at the top that prints the community information, database record details, and even the menu that we see across here, all of the links, those are all erased when we go and look at it in print mode. And the only reason that we see the menu erased was because in the Edit Design template, I entered in, this is an HTML comment. The same thing could be accomplished with an HTML break tag or a non-breaking space. Anything that doesn't actually appear on the page but tells the software that you're using a custom page header and footer will work to erase the usual header and footer from the page. I'm going to remove these comments so that we can have a look at what happens if that header and footer isn't there. I'll reload the page. You'll see now the giant block at the top, the community information database record details shows. So again, the way that you can erase that in your print template is by putting absolutely anything in the custom page header and footer, and things that you can put in that are cause a blank without actually putting any extra information in would include an HTML comment, which looks like this. It has an exclamation mark and a certain number of dashes. The number of dashes just need to be the same on both sides, and you don't actually have to have anything in between. So for instance,
to be slower about switching screens because it takes a minute to come up and people are able to follow.
okay, I can be slower about switching screens. So anything in this format is an HTML comment, and an HTML comment will not display anything to the screen, but tells the software that you want to erase the usual header that prints and use this instead. Other things you can use would be a break tag, which looks like this, BR, or what is called a non-breaking space, an NBSP. Okay? Any of those options would completely erase whatever content is there currently. If you don't want something completely blank, and you actually want to put a certain amount of content, for instance, a copyright, instead of blank, that also works. You can see that it printed, instead of the normal header, it printed my exact content. That's often put at the bottom of the page when people want to include a basic copyright information so that it's clear to the person who has the printed copy that that information is copyright for your agency. Anything that you view in print mode automatically has the date that this record was printed. This is really important because of the fact that the information can go out of date pretty quickly. By knowing what date it was printed on, you have a sense of how old the information is and whether or not it's still in date. Does anyone have any questions about print templates? They really are that simple. You can see that in my particular case, I've chosen some black and white colors as my template colors. But honestly, that does not matter. That is not at all a critical factor in creating your print template. It certainly can be nice for the person printing it if you use colors that are friendly to black and white printers, because most people do tend to print in black and white most of the time. But it certainly isn't necessary, and it will not prevent people from printing out the information in a reasonable way. The things that are important when you create a print template are, again, that you have whatever disclaimer information that you want to have on the page, whether at the top or the bottom or both, and that you do your best to avoid clutter and creating the page a page that's too long and has too many pages to print for information that's not necessary when you print the record out. But other than that, whatever else you do with the page, whether it be colors or style sheets or anything else, that's totally to your discretion and would follow any of the same rules of any other design template that you set up. So there's no particular need or concern to follow a particular guideline when setting this up, the only one is content. And again, the best way to ensure a nice, compact content for your page is to use the options for custom page header and footer, even if it's only to erase the default header from the page. Okay, so are there any questions about using print templates? I'll talk a little bit more about print mode. Specifically, if you look at this particular record that I'm printing out, there's a...
As
Oh, there's a
myself,
question?
their version says print profiles. That's the same thing. So
No, print profiles are totally, totally different than print templates. We will be covering print profiles in the second, or most of the rest of the call today. We'll be talking about print profiles. Print templates are done in the view setup. So I'll just for a refresher for anyone who wasn't at our views training session, I'll just quickly go over that. So I'll go back to the setup page, and when I go to views, any particular view that I choose has two kinds of templates. It has the main template, which is how the record and the pages normally display when you are viewing the database, and you have the print template. And the print template is only available and used when you click the special print version new window link. Right? I've erased my print version new window, and I need to change my view. Right here, print version new window. You will not see the print version new window link unless you have set up a print profile. You selected a template for your non-print profile, sorry. You selected a template for your print template. If this is blank like this, you will not see the print version new window in your list of options when you're doing the record. There are a few other places that print version is available, including your statistical report, your search results. I'd have to go through to look at all the places where it's available, but it's not available on every page, and it's only available if you have set up and chosen a print template. And again, a print template is exactly like any other template, and you can select a regular, if you will, template as your print template, and it will still work. It will still strip out all the links and do a lot of what a print template is designed to do. But unless you customize your template to be optimized for printing so that you erase the header and footer, you put in whatever copyright information you want, unless you do that, you're not going to be able to take advantage of those things. So if you never see the print version new window link in your records and so on, it's because you haven't set up a print template in your view setup. Okay, is that clear to everyone? Does anyone have any other questions about print templates? We'll talk a bit more about print version, which again, anytime I say print version, that means I'm talking about a print template. Okay, not a print profile, but a print template. And again, print version links only show if you have a print template set up for your view. So what I was showing when I sort of changed tracks was this red message. So these are page messages. And on this particular page, I've assigned two messages to this page. I have this message should not be seen in print mode, and this message should be seen in print mode. And if I look in my print one, I have just this message should be seen in print mode. That's to highlight to you that when you set up a page message in the current version of the software, and again, this only applies to the last software upgrade, so Toronto would not see this option. When you are setting up your page message, you have the option to decide whether or not that message shows when you are doing a print version. So if you had, say, a special link to a customer satisfaction survey so that you wanted to poll the users of your site about how well the database is working for them, obviously that's not something that you want to show when you are doing a print version of the record. It's not appropriate. so when you are doing your setup for your page message, you can say that you do not want that message to show in print version, and that will be hidden whenever you do a print version of the record or the search results or any other purpose. Does anyone have any questions about the page messages and print version of the page messages? Okay. I'm going to go talk a little bit more about the print version, and specifically we're going to look at the print version for the search results, because this does come into play in some of the little tips and tricks that we can do to get data out of CIOC and into other systems. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to change my display options, and specifically I want to set my search results up to do an email list. So I'm going to select email from my custom fields. I don't want to see the located in. I don't want the alert box. All I want is the organization name and the email for that organization. So update the display, reload my page. Okay, so basically I have an email list here. And really, if I'm going to do this properly, I'll go to my advanced search and only show records with emails. And then I have my email list. It's going to be very, very long. Okay, so let's say I want to take this list and get it out of the software because I want to send an email call with these people. Well, what's the best way to do that? Sure, you can get this information out of your download, but let's say for people who don't have access to your download, or if you just want to do this quickly using the current set of information and you just want this particular information, I can go to a print version of my search results. It's going to take a while because I have 4,000 records. I can save this page. We'll call this email list.htm. Then I'm going to start up Microsoft Excel. I'm going to open that file. There's my email list.htm. I'm going to open it. If you see this message, what it's saying is it can't find the style sheet information that's part of the page. And the result of that is just that the formatting, such as the fonts and the colors, are not going to come across. Sometimes it will be able to fetch this style sheet. In my case, I'm using some odd local things, and this actually is a missing file, meaning this is an invalid address, and so it can't find this information. However, if you receive this message, it's not something to be concerned about. It's only about formatting. So you can see here, I have my information in Microsoft Excel. I'm going to clear that particular row that had the copyright on it. So you can see how nice and clean this comes in. I have a perfect Excel spreadsheet of all my organization names and email addresses all ready to go for whatever purpose I might like. Not only can I bring this information into Excel, but I could also bring this information into Microsoft Access as long as I didn't have that Catherine Lambacker that I had at the top, which would interfere with Access's understanding of the format of the file. The way I have it now with just the header at the top and the names, this will import perfectly into Microsoft Access. It will actually get the field name from the top column and import all of this data, and then it's available to you to use for whatever reporting you might like that way. Okay, and that's how simple it is. And from here, I can save this to an Excel spreadsheet and do any other analysis that I wanted to do in this in Excel. And not only can you do this with something like an email list, you could also use statistical information. So I could change my display options and say I want to show the statistics instead. So the record views, let's say I want to show the public and logged in record views and totals, let's say. I'll update my display. Refresh my page. Need to search with fewer records. Okay, and then I can do that in a new window. And it will come up with the same thing. But the advantage is that then you can take advantage of Excel's number crunching to do whatever kind of analysis you want to do on those numbers. Because once you bring this into Excel, it can understand these as numbers and graph them for you or do any other thing that you want to do with it. Do whatever kinds of counts and summaries that you want to do. Okay, so that's another one of the major advantages of print version. And again, speaking of statistics, from our statistics menu, you can choose whether or not you want your statistical report to be a print version. Okay, and if you do, then it would use your print template to generate your statistical report. So that, again, it's really easy to bring into Excel or any other kind of format that you might want to use it in order to publish your reports or further analyze your information. There's a question. Just one moment.
Gary's asking how you're putting the print version into Excel. So.
Oh, did you wanted me to print do the print version that I was showing as an example into Excel? If that's the issue, I can certainly do that. It's I mean it's just the same as I just showed previously, but I'm happy to show again. So let's say I want to take this particular one and bring this into Excel. I would do print version, new window. Okay, I don't need a title for the report. I'll save my page. And this time, instead of calling it email list, I'm going to call it record view list. Okay, and I can go then into Microsoft Excel. Close this one that I have open, and open the next one. So I'll open record view list. Okay, again, I'm going to delete this top.
Okay, so the key there is there's no cut and paste involved. The printed window is saved to disk as an HTML file and then opened by Excel out of that HTML file. And because it's all that's contained in there is an HTML table, Excel just understands it as a table and brings it in.
Right. We're very lucky at this stage of technological development that most document processing packages, database packages, spreadsheet packages understand HTML and are able to bring in and work with those files. And that means that all of the web pages that CIOC can output are also usable in many other software packages. You can bring that data into Microsoft Word. You can bring that data directly into Microsoft Excel. There's no special work required to do that. And what's wonderful about that is you can then take this really easily exported information and produce your mailing labels, do extra statistical queries, all of those things that you want to do with that information. And rather than using your download, which obviously gives you access to all the core information from which we produce these things for you, the advantage of being able to get it out of CIOC is you can take advantage of all of CIOC's searching and querying features and display features in order to produce your information. You don't have to do all of that querying work. You just do the querying in CIOC using all of the existing tools, then publish your information and bring it into whatever other application package you want, Word, Access, even OpenOffice should support the use of all of these files because of the fact that HTML files, XML files, all of these markup languages are so well supported in most modern document processing packages.
So it should work in OpenOffice and WordPerfect suites as well. And we have tested some of these things in OpenOffice for sure and see that they work. Again,
the best print profile, if you want to bring your information into another application package like I've done here with Excel, the best print profile for that is going to be one that doesn't have any extra clutter on it. It just has your basic table that displays the actual information. So that's the optimum way to get your information out and into another software package. Keeping in mind that every single view that you set up can have its own print version. So there's no problem for you to have a print version optimized for your staff to work with their data in a particular way, and for your public view to create a print version that's optimized for the way you want to distribute your information to the public. And speaking of that, when you go into an individual record and you want to print this record for the public, if you've set up your views properly to be able to see your public view, it's a matter of switching to your public view and then assuming that you've set up a print profile for your public view. It's ready to go for you. You just do print version new window on your public view, and it's all ready to go. In this case, the template, the print template, is exactly the same print template that I had set up in my staff view, but by switching views to the public, the information that's displayed is only the information that's set to be available to the public. So you'll see how much shorter my my printout is. It's because it's only showing the information that would normally be available to the public. So that when your staff are working in a record and they want to do a printout and give it to a member of the public, they would simply switch view to the public view and do a print version from the public view. And that means that you would not only be concerned about setting up a print version for yourself and your staff, but also if you want one to do printouts for the public, you could set one up for your public view. There is another setting, a global setting, about whether or not you want those the print version to be available to people who don't have a login. So just because I set up a print template for my public view doesn't mean it's available to the public. I have to also go to General Setup Options, here, General Setup Option, and say Public Print Mode is on, okay? So that means that it is possible for you to set up a print template for your staff to use to print out records for the public and not make that print template available to users of the public if that's what you wanted to do. So I think that covers everything that I was planning to cover about print versions, unless anyone has another specific question. Okay, and again, keep in mind that not only will this go into Excel, but I can bring this document here if I want to save this. I'll call this Habitat. I can open that in Microsoft Word. I can remember where I stored it. I think it was CIOC. Okay, so by doing it in Microsoft Word, here I have the opportunity to further edit it and modify it in whatever format I want, change the page size, change the formatting, anything you want to do with it. And this is the case with any page that comes out of the software. Because it is an HTML page, it's a really simple matter for you to take that page, save it, and bring it into your document processing package to do whatever else you might like to do with it, whether that's search results or record details, statistical reports, any page in the software. And the fact that you can do that is one of the major things that support our more detailed print tool, which is the print list tool that uses print profiles, which is what we're going to talk about next. Okay. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to hopefully pick a decent publication out of Inform Hamilton site, who I know have both a good set of records classified well to demonstrate these print tools and do have print profiles set up. So first we're going to take a look at how we actually use existing print profiles, and then we'll take a step back and look at how we configure those print profiles. So I'm going to go to the print records. So there are two different ways for you to use print profiles to produce a list of records. And again, print profiles are for making printed lists of records. They're not for printing individual records. So if you want to print an individual record, you would set up a print template and do the print version new window link in order to print that individual record. And if you want to have a special choice of which fields to display in that print version, again, you do that by setting up a view that has the fields you want and have the ability to switch to that view, such as switching to the public view, in order to only show the fields that you want to print when you print out that individual record. Here, doing a print record list, we're concentrating on printing multiple records at once. Okay, that is the purpose of our print profiles. And while it is absolutely possible to print just one record at a time, that isn't the purpose for the tool, and it's a lot more awkward to, there's no easy way to just print out the record that you're looking at using a print profile, at least not at the moment. You have to do it one of two ways. And the first is what we just did here, which is we went to the main menu and clicked on print record. Okay, so that's the first way. And using that method, you can select from a group of publication codes and a specific print profile and then produce that. I thought it was distribution codes too, but you can use that to produce your report. So your only option is to select one or more publication codes, and that's how we select the records that we're going to print. If you want to print specific records, you do it from your search results. So let's say I'll pick all the letter H. Sorry, I used the back button. My mouse has a handy little back button on the side of it, and I bump it occasionally. So say I want to print some specific records, I can use the select checkbox option to select the particular records that I'm interested in. Then I want to do a print list. And then I have the option of selecting the print profile that I want to use. So let's say I'm going to do a Dundas information request. I have the opportunity to print out a report message. Let's say I'm going to make that a heading. Because again, as with all of the setup tools in CIOC that allow you to do customization, HTML is the core method that we use to do formatting in CIOC, and that holds true for print profiles as well. What we'll do next, it will open it in a new window. Okay. You can see it printed by heading level 1. Here are some records that begin with H. This particular print profile has automatically printed a heading that was set up in the print profile, which says who provided the information, what it's for, the logo, and then it prints the content of the records that I've chosen. The exact fields that are here and the format that they're stored in is determined by the print profile. In this case, you can see we have org level 1, it's a heading 1, and they put borders around it. Here's our org level 2, print address, contact, and so on, and then we have our description at the bottom, which is just free text. So that's an example of a print list report. You have to close that window in order to go back to the area where you generated the report, because it does open in a new window, so be aware of that. It does give you the opportunity while you're testing your print profile to be able to modify it in one window while you simply reload the content of your generated print profile in the other window. All right, so we'll go back to the main menu and we'll look at some of the other tools that are available to us from the main print records menu. And from the main print records menu, you only have a choice of printing certain publication codes, so that would select the records based on whether or not they belonged to the publications that you chose. If you do not choose anything, it prints all your records that are available in your view. The profiles that you have available to you and the records that are available to be printed are determined by your view, what's set up for your view. So when you create a print profile, you select the views that will be able to access it. And obviously, a basic security measure here, you are not allowed to print records that are not part of the view that you are working in, because you can't access records that are not part of what you are allowed to see. So depending on the view you're working in, that will further confine what is available to you to print, okay? Pardon me. Besides printing from a profile, for larger publications where you're actually producing some kind of a directory, you have the ability to generate name, phone, email indexes, and subject indexes. So first we'll talk a bit about the name indexes. Again, you can only generate these last two and anything on this page based on a particular publication code. In this case, for the name index and the subject index, it has to be one single publication code, which differs from up here where for the list of printed records, you have the ability to pick more than one publication code. For the name and subject indexes, you can only pick one publication code at a time. You can select the font, family, and size that you want your name index to be generated in. You can optionally choose whether or not you want to include other contact information in the report. We're going to first start by generating a name index that is simply a list of the records in your let's say it's a directory. We're not going to include these extra contacts, and then we'll come back and add them so you can see what that looks like. The inclusion of cross-reference names means that in any record where you have selected a name as a cross-reference, and I'll go just to demonstrate, I'm going to go into a particular record in case it's unclear to anyone what that means. I'm going to update the record. When you are editing everything except the main organization name, you have the option of selecting that name as a cross-reference name. That means when you publish this name index, that name will appear on its own alphabetically in the list, so that if, let's say I had an organization who had a short form of an acronym like ABC, that most people would look up that organization by ABC. You could check off the name ABC, and if they looked it up that way, it would find it there and direct them to the official name that the organization is listed under. So that's the advantage of including cross-reference names. Dot leaders mean that there will be dots going from the end of the organization name over to the column that either has the list of contacts or the record number. The record number in all of print lists is not the same as the record number in the records that, ham, or here we go, bar 0117. This is not the record number that we are referring to when we generate a print list. The software automatically numbers the records in the order that they occur in the publication, starting at 1. And when you print the list, if you choose to include record numbers when you print the list, they're the same record numbers that you would see when you generate a name or subject index. Finally, you have to decide whether you're formatting this for printing online, meaning you're simply going to load it in your web browser and then to file print, or whether you want to bring your final report into Microsoft Word. It's important to know which way you're going to use it, because they're completely incompatible. So the format that that you use to generate this list for printing online, if you brought that into Word, the formatting would be incorrect. You would have no dot leaders. It would not appear the same as you saw it on the page. And likewise, if I say print format for printing in Word, it would look extremely strange in your web browser, but as soon as you saved that page and opened it in Microsoft Word, all of your dot leaders would be in place. It would look the way you expect it to look. That's because the particular HTML codes that are used for, or it's specifically the style that is used for displaying the information in your browser is different than the style information that Microsoft Word wants to use to do its formatting. In this case, I'm going to do printing online. Again, it's going to open in a new window. It will indent by org level, so if you have a record with multiple organization levels, it will indent them. If you have instances where there are records in your publication at multiple levels, such as here with ACE Ministries, it's going to include a record number for each and every record that occurs, but it won't relist the entire org level. It will simply indent them like you see here. This is probably a case here. This is likely, I don't know because this is my data, but this is likely a case of a cross-reference where Adult Day Service has been listed as a cross-reference name for St. Joseph's Villa Adult Day Service, so that if someone is looking up Adult Day Service, they would still find this record, which is actually record 2144. So if I look down at the bottom and look for St. Joseph's, way down there. There we go. So I'll look for Adult Day Service. It's probably easier at this point. There we go. St. Joseph's Villa Adult Day Service. You can see here that this was an org level 2 of St. Joseph's Villa, but because this was listed as a cross-reference name, we were also able to look it up as Adult Day Service. And again, that's something you choose at the time that you generate the record list. If I did the same report but said don't include cross-reference names, the one listing it as Adult Day Service wouldn't have appeared in the list. It would only appear in the standard format under its org level 1 name. And so this is the basic format. I've chosen to include dot leaders, so you can see them here. There are my dot leaders. If I do a print preview, you can get a sense of what this name index looks like. In this case, what you see up here is because the official website for child care in the City of Hamilton is actually, it begins with a period. So this is for records that are prior to the letter A, and that's why this occurs up above the letter A, for those of you who are wondering why that is. Okay. I'm going to generate the same report, but this time I'm going to include the office phone. If you want to generate a phone index, for example, a popular one to do is a list of TD phone numbers or toll-free phone numbers where you have a separate list for those items. I could say I only want to include the records that have a TDD phone. Okay, so when you select special fields to include in your name index, you have the option of saying that you only want to include records that have data in one of the fields you selected. And then when I would generate my report, you can see that it's only generating records that have TTY and TDD service. If you think it's unnecessary to say that these are TTY numbers because this is specifically a TTY index, I could take this same report, erase the label TTY, regenerate it, and it will simply list the phone numbers without explicitly saying these are TTY unless it actually occurs in the data. That's something I can't do anything about. But it won't explicitly put TTY in front of it unless it's actually in the data. So you can see here where we see TTY, that's because someone has explicitly put TTY colon in front of the data in that field. Okay. Are there any more questions about name indexes before I move on? Apply bold formatting would simply make the phone occur bolded. So if I run the same one, you can see there it is, bold.
She has her hand up.
Yeah.
So I'm going to unmute.
Lillian, you had a question? You can type it, or Chris has unmuted you if you have your phone, your voice service activated. Oh, okay. Well, we'll move on. If you do have a question, just type or speak your question. All right. Subject indexes work very similarly to name indexes, meaning you have the same option to choose whether you want to print online or use in Microsoft Word, the same font family, font size. The ability to generate a subject index is based on whether or not your publication has a list of general headings. If your publication does not have general headings, it will not be available to choose to produce a subject index. When you select the publication, it automatically is going to select only the records that belong to that publication that are available in your view, and it will produce the index based on the general headings in that view. In this case, I'm going to choose the Hamilton Community Services Directory, which is a nice big list. I chose this particular publication because it highlights how the subject indexes uses some of the more detailed setup items in general headings that allow you to do see also or see. Any of the capitalization that you see in this particular document has been done by Hamilton in the setup of their headings. So I don't want there to be any confusion that the special formatting that they have for their unused headings are anything but what they have done when entering their general headings. It's not something done automatically by the system that it makes it capitalized. So the way that they have set up their headings is by, you can see that they have, it'll first of all occur in alphabetical order. They have the ability to say that a particular heading is not used, such as this one, where you have to see a certain list of alternate headings instead of the given heading. So in this case, they have abuse as a general heading, but it's an unused general heading. They've specifically directed that someone who wants to find information on the topic of use has to reference one of these other headings that they have set up. So I could go down to abuse older adults, and here you see I will find actual records. And the actual records are printed in the same way that you saw them printed in the name index. So the same kind of formatting, the record numbers work the same way, the dot leaders work the same way. The difference is you're going to see a heading above each section. So you may see the same record in this list more than one time if it falls under more than one heading. And you'll also see certain headings have a reference to alternate headings. So in this case, abuse older adults also says to see the topic family violence. Okay? And again, all of this C's and C alsos are all part of the general heading setup that was done for this particular publication code. If you didn't have those unused headings or those related headings, so the ones that say C also, those are related headings. And the ones that say C are the result of an unused heading where you will indicate particular used headings to reference instead. Okay? And you would only see that kind of a setup if that's something that you had done in your general heading setup. Any questions about name indexes? The last important thing to understand when generating any name or subject indexes is that the record numbers that you see are generated at the moment that you run the report. That means if I run the main report right now, and I add a record, and then I run the name index afterwards, all of those records are going to be automatically renumbered by the system. So it's extremely important that you run these reports at the same time and do not add or remove records from your set in between running your full publication and any name, phone, or subject indexes that you might want to generate. Otherwise, the record numbers that you see will not be accurate. Okay. Before I go into the print profile setup, I wanted to show you using an existing report. I wanted to show you what the record numbers look like. So I think it's called HWRB. There we go. I have it right. Okay. So you'll see here, there are the record numbers, okay, that are actually printed with that particular list. And again, if you wanted to do any further formatting of this particular report, you wanted to set it up to print in a particular page size or alter the formatting in any way, you can do that by opening this document in Microsoft Word and doing further formatting and processing of it there. Oh, yeah, so how you do that is exactly the same as I showed you earlier. Once you've run the report, and this applies to whether it's the print version or your print list, whatever you're doing, if you want to get it out into another software package, the way to do it is do File, Save Page As, or Save File As, depending on what web browser you're using. The bottom line is that what you're doing is saving it.
In Internet Explorer 7, File, Save As?
File, Save As. It's whatever method you use to save the page, that's what you're going to do. Okay, so if I'm going to open Microsoft Office here. Okay. So from this point, I would have the option to do any other formatting I wanted to do to the page, including adjusting page breaks, adjusting the page size, if I wanted to print on non-standard page. Okay. So I could do any further formatting that I wanted to do from here. Put in manual page breaks if I didn't like the way the page breaks were occurring, and so on. Okay. Then the quote nice thing about the way the print profiles are generated using HTML is whatever formatting you do within your record to display nicely online for people normally accessing the records in your database will also format your records for printing. So, for instance, all of the bullets and any other HTML formatting that is done to customize and lay out your data to display it in the record details page is also going to automatically transfer over to you doing your print publication. Any bolding you might add, headings, lists, all of that will automatically transfer over. Too many things running right now. Okay. So now that we've shown a bit about what is produced, I wanted to take a moment to show you how to set it up. And actually, I'm going to show you one more example, something that I was working on today to give you a bit of an example of a more specialized print profile that you can do. This is something that I specifically set up in my own test database, just as an example. So I'm going to oh, you know what? I think I want the organization name. There we go. I'm going to generate a print list, and I have a print profile that I've created called XML test. This particular profile that I've created, I've specifically created for the purpose of generating an XML document. Okay, so what I would do after and this, believe it or not, this that you see here is done with exactly the same setup tools as the Red Book report that we just looked at. What I'm going to do is actually I'm going to select all of the output of this particular report. I'm going to dump it into a plain text file that I've created here. I'm going to save it as an XML document. Okay. I've already done this, obviously, so I'm just repeating myself. And then what I can do is first of all, I can open that file and take a look at it in my web browser so that I can browse it as an XML document. There we go. I didn't have time to. This was a really quickly done report, so I haven't done any special checking to escape bad characters. Let me run the same one with different records. Get rid of the one that had the ampersand. So here it is as an XML document that I'm viewing in. I'm just viewing it in my web browser, allowing me to view the particular fields that I've exported as a custom XML document. And the error that we saw was because when I set this up, it was experimental, and I hadn't done any of the necessary setup to actually ensure that there was no bad things in the data being output. In that case, it was an ampersand, and that would have to be dealt with a particular setup item in the print profiles, and I'll show you how you would do that. But here we are looking at a basic XML document. So if you have ever been asked by a third party to produce for them a customly formatted XML document that they could then use for another system or for another purpose, here's an example of how you could use a print profile in order to generate XML in that fashion. In this case, I'm particularly deciding that I wanted to generate this information in order to produce mailing labels. So I had specifically included address, and I had done some special setup items so that it'll show the mailing address if there is one, and if not, use the site address. I've included the contact name, org level 1 in this case. I could do org level 2, 3, 4, whatever I needed. I'm including the record number in the export, but that's obviously something that you wouldn't need when you're doing mailing labels. So let's say I take this access document and I want to use this to generate the mailing labels. The big advantage of what I've produced here is what I just told you about the address. The print tool allows you to do a setup which says if a certain field doesn't have any information in it, use a different field instead. And that means for the purpose of generating things like mailing labels, you can say, use the mailing address if there is one, but if there's no mailing address, use the site address. And that is absolutely perfect for the setup of mailing labels because you don't have to worry about running ones with mailing addresses separately from running ones where you have to use the site address, or doing whatever querying is necessary to identify whether or not you have to use one address or another. I can take the output of an XML document like this and bring it into an Access database. So let's say I have here a blank Access database. I can do import. I'm going to go and find that XML document that I was just working with. I'm going to choose XML documents from the list. Okay, it's going to show me what it found in the XML file as a structure. So it found items called records, and in records it found the fields num, contact, org1, and address. I'm okay with that, so I'll say import. It may or may not produce a second table that's called import errors, which would tell you if it was unable to import any or all of the fields or records. I can now open my my new table in Access, which you can see has num, contact, org1, address, exactly the fields that I had laid out in my setup. Again, that's just another example of how much you can customize a print profile to do more than just printing out a basic record list. You can do quite interesting and sophisticated things with it without having to have very much technical knowledge or database knowledge in order to do that.
You might want to mention that that was one case where you want to use cut and paste because of the formatting.
Yeah. So Chris was pointing out that I didn't do save page as in that indication, and I'll show you why. I'm going to run that report again. Oh, this is the wrong thing. Pardon me. I don't think I have my
Recent tabs.
Fine. Do it from here. So I didn't do save page as when I ran this particular item, and I'm going to show you the reason why. If I do a view source, this is HTML. So if I do a view page source and we look at the HTML underlying this, you can see that it doesn't look like XML. It has table cells, it has special character encoding. It's not pretty. And if I save this page and try to use it as an XML document, it would not work because it is not an XML document. It's an HTML document, and it has some formatting in it that's completely incompatible with using it as an XML document. So how I get by that is I copy the information. So in my case, I'm doing select all, which is Control-A, or you can simply right-click with your mouse and do select all. And then I'm copying that, which again is Control-C, or you can right-click and do copy. And then I'm pasting that into a text document so that what I get is what I see, so the exact text that I'm looking at, rather than the HTML source that makes up the page. Okay, so that's a special case of where save page as wouldn't work. If in order to do this particular thing, you have to copy and paste it because we formatted the XML to display, but that's not actually what's being output. It's not outputting XML, it's outputting HTML that happens to look like XML.
But every other case that we've talked about so far is save the page and open it in your program. This is an exception to the rule of save the page and open it in the target application.
In general, copying and pasting would make you lose all your formatting. In this case, that's exactly what we want to do. We want to lose all of that HTML formatting because that isn't part of what we're trying to get. All we want is the actual data that's being displayed, including the XML tags that we see here. If we had the HTML formatting, this would not work for this purpose. Okay. So I'm I'm going to go now and talk about how we actually do our print profile setup. And this is perhaps the most complex thing, and it is a very tedious process to get a really good print profile. But the good news about that is, one, it's tedious because it's extremely customizable. You can make these reports do very many different things. They're very flexible. They're very customizable. Unfortunately, that also means that they can be a lot of work to set up. However, once they're set up, you can continue to use them over and over and over again, and there is a tool for copying print profiles. So once you've set up one, it's a simple matter to copy the one that you've already set up and just tweak it a little to reflect any special changes that you might want to make in creating a special print profile. Okay, I'm going to go first into a basic print profile here and talk a bit about each of the settings and what they actually mean. Every instance of CIOC has shipped with some sample style sheets. In this case, I'm using one of them. It's called Print Sample B. How do you know where it is in your site? It's basically the address of your CIOC database, style, and then the name of the print style sheet. Do I expect you to remember that? No. There is very, very, very detailed page help for all of the print tools. The print list and print profile setup. Extremely detailed page help. So what I'm explaining to you here today is there's a reference for you. So after this is done, when you can't remember the exact details about where something is or what it works or what a particular field does, simply use your page help, because this explains all the details of how the print tool works, editing your print profiles, all of the general settings and what they do. You can see here we have an example of where the sample style sheets are in your database and how you use them, and so on. Very, very detailed for every single page to do with setting up and working with print profiles. So please make use of that tool. If you ever forget what any of these particular items is for or how you use them, the first place to check is the page help, because there's extremely detailed information on each one about how to use it, including examples in a lot of cases. Now that I've given that little spiel, as I indicated earlier, just like many other areas of the software, the print profiles are extremely dependent on the use of HTML. So if you have absolutely no HTML knowledge, there is a point at which you will not be able to make the best use of the tool. However, you should be able to do some basic things in the print tool even if you don't have any knowledge whatsoever of HTML. So it's not critical for you to know how to use HTML to produce a basic print report. But if you want to do some of the more sophisticated and interesting things in print reports, or you want to make it look really nice, then it is going to be important for you to have at least a basic understanding of how HTML works, or have access to someone who does have a basic understanding. If you have a specific question about the HTML that you need to do something in particular, the best place for you to ask is the bulletin board, because either myself or another member may be able to guide you in the right direction to do what you're trying to do. Style sheets, for anyone who doesn't know, are a type of formatting in an HTML document. So the formatting includes not just things like colors and fonts, but also they can explain how a document is to be laid out. So where particular things are positioned in the page, how they occur in relation to one another, and even certain kinds of behaviors that that page may have when certain kinds of actions occur. An example of what a style sheet looks like is, oh, I need my, how did I get my, there we go, that's what I want. this is an example of what a style sheet looks like. This, again, is the print sample that was one of the print samples that was included with your software and is available for everyone to use if you have absolutely no idea of how style sheets work and you want to have some basic nice formatting available to you for setting up your print profile. If you want to know how to make the best use out of these sample style sheets, what you should do is go to the test site, because each of the tests on the test site we have I have set up sample print profiles that use each of these test profile ABC. Okay, ABC were created by me and shouldn't be modified by anyone else. These profiles were specifically set up to teach you how to use the specific print samples that I have provided, okay? So it would tell you how to use things like the standard label, the standard content. Where are you actually going to use these in the setup of your print profile? The way you figure that out is by going into the test profile, so that's test profile A, B, and C on the test site. Test profile A is here. And you will see a particular sample style sheet in use. And when we go into the setup, you would see how certain classes are used, such as here you see the standard label, which is what we see here, the standard label. Okay, so you would be able to come in here and copy some of the setup items without having any understanding of how to do this, or HTML. It's completely unnecessary, because you can come in and model a print profile after one of these samples that has been set up for you on the test site. If you don't have a login to the test site, you can email Leslie Russell. Her contact information is on the main page of the test site, or you can post on the bulletin board, and myself or Leslie will email you, or Chris will email you some initial account information so that you can work in the test site and view these profiles. So again, the style sheet is there to provide certain formatting instructions, like, for instance, when we were viewing the Red Book publication. What the style sheets are what makes the lines occur, what makes this be indented to the right, what makes the labels bold. All of those things are, in the font sizes that you see here, all of those are determined by the style sheet that's being used. In this case, it's very likely that they have a special style sheet that they have set up for their Red Book. So here it is. You can see they have, they set up their own style sheet called redbook.css that has exactly the formatting that they want to use for their style sheet. If you want to try and do that, what you can do is copy the style sheet that's provided as a sample by simply doing File, Save Page As, editing it in whatever way that you want, and then saving it somewhere on your own website, and then you can use it in your print profile. So this particular style sheet, for example, has double lines around the heading level 1. If we want to see what does that look like, I can go to run, I'm going to run an example with that. See if I can find some records. Where are my records? Where are my records? That's a really good question. Where are my records? My records seem to be gone. I don't know where my records are in the test site. Someone's been doing some funny things with the test site, I think. I'll have to look into that. There are thousands of records in the test site. I think someone's made it a publication view. Okay, well, I'm going to generate a print list with my test profile A. You can see these double lines that have been set above and below, so these thick gray lines. If I didn't like that formatting, okay, then I could use a different style sheet and say, you know, I didn't want it to be gray color, or I didn't want it to be medium thickness, or I don't want to use the Arial font. Whatever the case may be, you can customize this style sheet to have the sizes, the colors, the formatting that you want it to have. If you don't use a style sheet, this can still work. So it's fully functional without a style sheet, but the style sheet will provide a lot of nice formatting options for you, including, in this case, it's nicely separating one record from another by having the solid borders around each of the org level 1. And you can see here in this case it's also using small caps for org level 2. So it's automatically capitalizing the organization names and using small caps. Right, back to editing my profile. Once you've chosen a style sheet, you're going to see a number of items where it gives you the opportunity to specify a class for the item. And again, this only is relevant in the context of the style sheet that you're using. In this case, if I looked at my style sheet, I have a record table class that I have set up that says that everything that occurs in the table, so this is a table, is aligned to the top. So the phone fax automatically is bumped up to the top of this list where I have a giant list of phone numbers. If I didn't have it aligned to the top, then phone fax would actually occur in the middle, so somewhere down here, which obviously wouldn't be very attractive. I've also said that there's a certain amount of padding around elements in the table, which means that you can see this blank space that I have in between the two lines and between the labels and the content. Okay, so blank space here and blank space here. And that's determined by the padding that I've set up in my style sheet. And that's why when I choose the table class as record table, I'm automatically applying the particular style elements that are set up in that record table class. If you don't specify a table class, that's fine. It's just going to default to a really, really basic format. You can specify a page title. The page title actually occurs when you go to print it. In this case, it says record list. The page title occurs when you go to print the page. It will occur in, depending on what you've set up. I don't have it set up to show the page information. If I wanted it to show the title somewhere, then it would actually print it in the page. I don't want it to. But if you've ever noticed when you print an HTML page, it will actually print the title of the page above the content that it's printing out. That's what the page title will do. You almost never need it. Pardon me for flipping around so much. You almost never need a page title. So this is not an important setting, and do not worry about leaving it blank. The header and footer occur at the very top and very bottom of the report. Okay, so when we were looking at the Dundas report that we printed out, with smaller publication. Here is my header that has been provided in this particular report. So above all of the records that are being printed out, I have a logo, a title, some contact information. That's what they've chosen to include as the header on their print report. Okay, so the content is generally HTML formatted because in order to do things like lay out the image here, the title here, and all of the contact information, that is done by using HTML and laying that information out to say this is over on this side, this is in the middle, and this is over to the right, and you know, right aligned and so on. That's all done through HTML. You also have the ability to create what's called a message. So you'll have noticed by now that every time I go to produce a report, I come first to this form that says report message. And sometimes when I run it, there's been information in it automatically, and sometimes it's been blank. And the reason is you have the capability to provide a default message, which would appear in this box. But at the time the report is run, I always have the ability to customize that message to print anything that I want. So when I ran the information out of the test site, I had, here's my default message. It includes a disclaimer. That's what's there as a default. But I could then add, I printed this for the training. And when I run that, it's going to include any alterations that I make to the message. How does the message differ from the header and footer? Well, one is obviously you can customize the message at the time you run the report. So if you want to be able to say, you know, report printed for Bob Smith, or you know, here is the list of child care centers that you requested, or you know, anything specific for the particular client that you might be producing the report for, that's the advantage of a message, is you can customize it at the time that you run the report. Your header and footer cannot be customized at the time you run it. They're set once in the print profile, and that's it. There's no modifying it. But there is another advantage to using a message, and that is the ability to specify whether or not the message occurs once at the top of the page or once before each record. One of the major advantages of this is that you have the ability to specify whether or not each record is going to appear on its own page. So right here you can see I have it start each record on a new page when printing. If you have that setting where every single record is going to be printed on its own page, by using the record message and saying that the message is going to be repeated before each record, it allows you to make sure that you have a disclaimer and a copyright with every single record on every single page. With a header and footer, it's only going to appear above the very first record and on the footer below the very last record. How does this work in practice? I'm going to go and edit my print profile A and show you here. So if I went to print profiles and I'll edit test profile A, and I'm going to say, here we go, start each record on a new page when printing, and I'm going to change it to say repeat the message before each record. Now I'm going to run that report again. Okay, so I'm going to print using test profile A. That's the one I'm working on. So here's my default message. It includes a disclaimer. Customize it. Okay, you can see that it's now printing the message above each and every record. If I go to print it, I'll do a print preview. I have one record per page. Okay. So every record is occurring on its own page with my default message above it, and so on. All right, back to my editing. So that's what headers and footers and messages do. Again, message is customized at the time. Header and footer cannot be customized at the time you print it, and you can decide whether or not a message is going to appear before each record or just once at the top of the entire report. Finally, on this page, we specify who is going to have access to this print profile. So you select the specific views where this print profile is going to be available, and therefore anyone who has access to those views would also have access to those reports. Please keep in mind that it is entirely possible to add fields to your print report that are not available anywhere else in the view. So if I create a print report that has access to internal memo, and I make it available in a view where people would not normally have access to that field, I'm giving them access to internal memo through the print profile. So be thoughtful about who you give access to which print profiles if they use fields where that information would not normally be available to the person who's using that view. That's all the basic setup of the report. The next and most important part of our setup is which fields are going to show in the report. So any changes that you make to the main setup of the profile have to first be submitted before you do anything else. So that's similar to when you're doing your view setup. You have to submit the setup for your view before you change any of the field information. I'm going to go now to Manage Fields. And here we have a very long form which outlines all of the fields that are going to be available in my report. So you'll see one by one it's going to show the specific fields that are available in the report and the order in which they're going to occur. Okay? So fax, email, website, contact, and so on. You add fields to your report by selecting them from the list, keeping in mind it is possible to add the same field more than one time. So don't count on the fact that just because it's in the list that you haven't already added it to your report. You can select from any of the fields that are available in the database because, again, this setup is only available for super users, and super users have the ability to access everything in the database. So the super user who's doing this setup should be aware that they are going to have the ability to pick from all the fields in the database for every print profile that's set up. And again, that means you need to be conscious of who you're going to access to the particular print profile so you don't give people access to fields that they wouldn't normally be able to see. You simply select the field that you want to add to your report. Let's say I want to add the taxonomy service or service categories to the report. And then you pick the type of the field. There are 4 basic types. One is a heading field. If we look at our profile here, this is a heading field. A heading field uses a heading HTML tag. So if I view the source of this page, this particular heading is using the H1 HTML heading tag. If you don't have any special styles applied to it with your style sheet, a heading tag is going to be bold and generally larger than the rest of your text. The number in your heading tag, in this case I have 1, indicates how important or how high level your heading is. So a heading level 1 is the most important heading that you can have in your document, and the heading level 2 would be slightly lower, and so on and so forth, all the way down to level 6 as the lowest possible heading that you can have. So if I say I want to add taxonomy as a heading, which is rather ridiculous, but just for argument's sake, go down and where's my taxonomy? Taxonomy. Every new field that I add is going to default to an order of 0. Just like everywhere else in the database, the ordering system works that you can pick any order from 0 to 255, and it will sort first by the order that is indicated by the number, and then by the name of the field. So because this added is order 0, and I already had a number of fields that started with 0, taxonomy, being a T, is going to occur pretty much at the bottom of that list, where site address with order 1 is going to end up occurring after the taxonomy field. Now that this has been added as a heading field, I have the ability to actually specify the number of the heading. So if I picked heading 1, that it would appear that huge bold formatting that we saw here, like this, okay? And that all the taxonomy data would appear in that large heading formatting, even though I've already got one for org level 1. So obviously that would look pretty silly. So I'm going to decide that's really not the way that I want to add the taxonomy data. I'm actually also going to do this in the test site so I can demonstrate it to you better. We'll go into that test profile A. So if I had added taxonomy as a heading, which I'll do again here, and I say that that's going to be heading level 1, none of these are indexed for taxonomy. Apparently none of these are indexed with the taxonomy. I don't know what's going on with my test site. I guess I'm doing it my own.
Taxonomy might be state.
Yeah. Well, okay. I'm going to use my own print profiles then. Sorry for the confusion. So I'll add, which one am I editing? Test profile. Okay. I'll add taxonomy. Yeah, as a heading here. I'll say that it's heading 1. And I will generate this with test profile. None of the ones here have taxonomy either. Yeah, I don't know why that's doing that. Good question. I'm the same site, right? Yeah, I am.
Not available in the view.
No, it's available. Not the issue. I don't know why that's not working. I'll have to look into that.
Guess no one uses taxonomy in there. Sure.
Yeah, I'll have to look up why that's not coming up. Always fun to find bugs during testing or during training. Okay, well, I'll use something different. I will add different add. On publication field. Let's see if that works. Am I editing the right profile? Ah, super. The editing the right profile. Yeah, I don't know. Oh, do I know? Yeah, okay. I think I know why. It's because of me being in a continuation field and where this is in the order. I think this is because I'm using continuation fields and it doesn't like where it is in the order. So let's try adding it as a different type. I'm going to look into that later. I think it's the order in which it's occurring. It wants the headings to occur first before any of the other types of fields. So I'll take the publications or the taxonomy field and I'll add it, but I'll add it as a different kind of field. I'll add it as a basic field. Still not adding? Don't know why. Okay, so something is really, I might have to pause, you know what, I might have to cancel the rest of the training until I figure out what's going on with this, because it's not letting me add any new fields. And I don't know if that's something that's newly, I set up a profile this morning and it was fine. So I don't know if I have destroyed my local copy of the software with recent changes that I've been doing or what, but it seems to not be letting me add anything new.
And do it against test.ca?
Well, all the records seem to have disappeared from test.cioc.ca, so that's making it a little difficult. All right, well, you know what, I'm going to explain using the existing fields that I have in this report, and I'll investigate why my copy is not working properly. So here I have org level 1, I have listed as a heading 1. Have the ability to specify a style, and again, that would come out of my style sheet. I can specify content is empty. What that means is if I had nothing in org level 1, what would I want to print instead? There are two options that I have. I can actually type some text, so I could say I want it to say unknown if there's no content in org level 1, or you can specify the content of another field. So I could say instead of org level 1, if org level 1 was blank, let's try and see if there's anything in org level 2. And the way we do that is using @ which indicates to the system that I want to use the content of a specific field, and then the name of the field. Pardon me.
That seems to work again. There's some of the publication.
Well, I'm into this now. So here's an example of the use of the content if empty. So I've said use the supplementary description. If there's nothing in the supplementary description, then use the regular description instead. Often where this is useful is if you have publication descriptions that you maintain, you can have it checked to see if there's anything in the publication description field, and if there is, it would use that. If there isn't, you can tell it to use the regular description instead. And that means that you only have to customize those specific records where you maybe have an extremely long description that you want to compress for the purpose of publication, but you don't want to have to maintain publication descriptions for every single record in your database. This means that you only have to maintain it for the specific ones where it matters, and then it can automatically use the regular description the rest of the time. Another way that you might want to use that is with a contact. You might say use contact 1 if there's nothing in contact 1, use contact 2 if there's nothing in contact 2, use exec 1 if there's nothing in exec 1, use exec 2, and so on. And that allows you to pick the first available contact from a list or whatever. So I can say if there's no contact 1, use exec 1. Would probably be the most common way to use it. Okay. I wanted to talk a bit more about the 4 types. So I said there was heading, which was the first thing I showed. See, we then have basic, full width, and continuation. Basic appears as a field label to the left and the contents of the field to the right. Okay, so that's a basic. This is a basic. We have field label to the left and content to the right. We then have full width, and here's an example with the description. We have the content of the description that goes all the way across. So unlike having the label on the left and the content on the right, if you want to label, it goes above the content, and the content spreads the entire way across the page. So for both fields, like the description, you may want to use a full width field. All right. So those are the 4 types. Continuation is the final one. Continuation allows you to group the content from a number of fields into one area. There's a few examples here of how we've done that. In the address, we've got the site address as a basic field. So here the label's address, and we print the content of site address. And then a continuation field is the mailing address. So if a mailing address occurs, it's going to keep writing in the address area and print out the content on the mailing address underneath. Likewise, we have phone fax, where the office phone is a basic field. So it prints phone fax and then the contents of the office field. And then the continuation is the fax field. If there's a fax field, it will also print fax directly following the content of the office phone field. Finally, contact is doing contact name 1. If contact name 2 exists, in this case it exists the same as contact name 1, it will print contact name 2, then exec name 1, and exec name 2. So you can see down here there's all 4. We have contact name 1, contact name 2, exec 1 and exec 2, all printed one after each other with the same label of contact. What does that look like in the print profile? You can see here contact 1 is our basic field, and here we specify the label, saying that the label is contact. And here we have contact 2 is a continuation field. It will put a new line, BR means new line in HTML. If there is a contact 2, it will print a new line and then the contact of contact 2. Exec 1 is also a continuation, so it will continue on after contact 2. It will print a new line if there is contact in exec 1, and then the contact of exec 1, and the same with exec 2. It's a continuation of exec 1. It will print a new line if there's content in the field. And then finally we get to a description is the full width field, so that ends the continuation and starts a brand new section. Does anyone have any questions about the types of fields? So those 4 types. We have headings, basic, full width, and continuation. Heading again uses the HTML tag of H, either 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Basic is in a table structure. It's going to print a column with the label, which can be anything that you want. That's going to occur on the left. And then on the right, it's going to have the content, which is going to be the data in your field or fields. Full width, optionally, will print the label, and then underneath it, will print the content of the text of the field. And finally, we have a continuation field, which can continue on after any of these 3 types. So it can continue on after heading, basic, or full width, and it would simply continue printing after the content that had already occurred. So in the case of org level, what we've done is org level 2 is heading 2, and if there's an org level 3, again, it's going to have a new line, and then print org level 3, all as part of the same heading. Instead of having it as new lines, I could say I want a comma and a space, or I want a period and a space, and then it would string all of the organization names together as if they were one field. So the content would all be printed together with whatever separator between the fields that you choose here. Depending on the type of field you choose, that determines the specific settings that are available to you. So for instance, the heading level is only available if you've chosen a heading type field. You'll only be able to specify a label for the field if it's a basic or full width field. So here you'll have a label, French or English, because again these reports can be bilingual. You can run them in both French and English if they've been set up that way. So the label occurs again. This is in a basic field, this is the label, and in a full width field, the label is above. Labels are optional, you don't have to specify a label. If you're using a style sheet, you can specify the style of the label. In my case, I've specified a style that has caused the labels to be bold. I keep going the wrong path. If you're using a continuation field, you do not have access to a label because it doesn't apply, but you do have access to some of the other settings, such as the ability to specify a prefix or suffix. A prefix or suffix are only printed if there is content in the field. So if we look at an example of where there's a mailing address, the prefix to the field is mailing address, and it would only be printed if there is, in fact, a mailing address. So if we look, here's a case where this particular record has no address. So how did we get this set up to have it say no street address? We can go to the site address field. Says if there's nothing in the site address field, then it's actually going to print out the words no street address. Because there's also no mailing address, it's simply not going to print any of the mailing address information out. It won't dump the word mailing address or any other field label if there's no content in the field. So unless you are specifying that there is content, if it's empty, so in this case address shows because no street address is has been specified to print if there's no content. But if I took that print if I took that print profile and deleted the content of empty, then it's not going to print address anymore. Okay? It's not going to print out the address unless there's something in it. Whereas if I put it back and say only print, if there's no site address, I want you to be explicit and say no street address, and I reload the page, there it is. It's going to print the address field and be explicit and say there is no street address. So other than the obvious bug in my copy of the software, are there any questions about how that setup works for those 4 types of fields? The last thing we have to go through is the find and replace command. And that can be a little tricksy. Okay? In order to demonstrate to you the find and replace command, there's a couple of things I'm going to do. One is I'm going to go back to my setup and the print profile that I made to deal with the XML test that I showed you earlier, so XML test. And we ran into a problem because one of the fields had an ampersand in it. I don't remember. I think it was the contact name 1 probably. So let's say it was contact name 1. And I know that when I produce an XML document, it can't have an ampersand in it, or it's not a valid XML document. So I can go into the manage find and replace commands. I can say look for ampersands and replace them, encode them, HTML encode them. And the way that we do that is and amp. Okay? So I can add this find and replace command to my record. And assuming that was the place where the ampersand was, I should be able to go back to, I think it was H that I had run, and do my print list again. And there's one in the address. See if there's any more. And one in contact, and org 1. So obviously I'm now looking at it. I see there's a number of different fields where I'm going to have to account for the ampersand field. So if I go back to my print profile setup, I'm going to add, this was on contact name 1. I'm going to go back to manage fields. I'm going to put in a find and replace command for org level 1, the exact same one. I'm going to say look for an ampersand, replace it with an encoding. And I'm going to do it for the address field too, because we saw that it had units 5 and 6, had an ampersand, so I'll do the same thing here. Add my find and replace command. Reload this. Okay, so let's try, see if we've caught it all. Again, I copied and pasted. Let's save it as test export. And I'm going to try and open it. See what we get. And encode it. Oh, why? Oh, I know why. I know why. I have to do an amp. So, because I needed to show, the and amp in the page that I'm viewing, I actually have to do it twice. I have to do and amp. So let's try that and see what happens. Oh, I'm not, pardon me. I have too many tabs open. do it from the letter H. There we go. So it's encoded it, and that would make that valid XML so that we would be able to bring this into any program that can read XML, because it's changed the ampersand into an encoded version of it, which is and. Okay? Now I want to talk about, for those of you not interested in XML, I want to talk about some more practical uses of the Find and Replace tool. So I'm going to go back to the print profiles. I'm going to go into one of my test profiles here. And I'm going to go to, I want one that has the description. Go to the test.cr. I'm going to go to the description field. Description fields can sometimes have HTML links, which obviously don't look very attractive when you are doing, when you are trying to print out records. You don't want to necessarily have the HTML links, and in particular, if the link is an important link, if it's just showing as underlined text, that doesn't tell the person who is viewing the information not online where that website address is. So I've provided some examples of find and replace codes. If you look in the page help on the find and replace page, that show you how to do a few interesting tips and tricks. So one is how to change a list that has been done with asterisk into an HTML bulleted list. One is removing hyperlinks. So just as I was describing, if you wanted to take all of the links in your description field and either remove them like this, or instead of removing them, you want to place them in brackets next to the text so that a person who is reading it as text is able to see and view the links, then you can use some of the particular instructions that I provided on this page. The find and replace commands can be really simple, like what I was showing you earlier with how I replaced the ampersand with an HTML equivalent that I wanted to use instead. Or you can use regular expressions. I don't know if anyone on the call has heard of regular expressions. Is there anyone who's absolutely never even heard of regular expressions? Totally new concept.
Someone's raising their hand.
Okay. Regular expressions are, it's a system of, matching patterns that is used really commonly. There are standard ways to use regular expressions, and you'll find it in pretty much any kind of technical sphere, programming languages, and so on, but also in any more technical and sophisticated document editors. Including Word, that's for the same. So any kind of sophisticated document editor will also give you the ability to search using regular expressions. Regular expressions are, I would certainly call them the most powerful search and replace tool that there is, period. What you can describe with regular expressions is just incredibly sophisticated. So anything that you can, as a human being, can describe how to match a pattern, you can pretty much do that with regular expressions. So if you think of the example of, let's take the example here of a bulleted list. So we can describe that, well, you'll know that you found a bulleted list if the first thing on the line is an asterisk, and there's some space between the asterisk and the text, and at the end of the text there's a new line. And you'll know that the list is over when you reach a line that doesn't begin with an asterisk. So there's me as a human being describing a pattern that I want to match. If you try and think about how you would possibly match that using a traditional find and replace, that's just impossible. You would never be able to do it with that that level of sophistication where you don't care what the content of the text is, but you do care where it is in relation to other text, and that certain patterns must occur in order for it to belong to the group or the set that we're trying to match. Regular expressions not only allow you to match that pattern, but you can isolate specific parts of the pattern, for instance, the text, individual parts of text, and use that when you do your replacing. This is what regular expressions look like. This is actually a really, really tame example of regular expression. And this description is saying, I want you to find something that begins with a new line. That's what that the /n means. Or caret means the very beginning of the file or document, in this case. I want it to begin with an asterisk. That's what the /* means. And I want to match any text that occurs after that asterisk and before the end of the line. And there can be, I can match that more than one time. That's what the plus means. So I can match it more than one time. It's at least once is what plus means, actually. It can be more than one, but it's at least once. And the second one is doing the same thing, but the first of these expressions is looking for the entire list, and the second of these expressions is looking for the individual bullet. Okay? So the first one is going to surround this list with an HTML command that indicates a list. And the second command is going to find the individual elements of that list and put them as HTML list items. It's going to create bullets. It's going to strip out the asterisks and only care about the content of the bullet, just like you see here. And it does that by using what are called back references that always begin with a $. Do I expect you to understand how regular expressions work? No. Although if some of you are intrigued enough by what I can show you that regular expressions can do, I would really encourage you to get out there and learn about regular expressions and how they work. I certainly would like to see regular expressions as something that people can use in the find and replace tool for working with their data, like the regular find and replace tool, not just this print profile, because it is so sophisticated and it does offer such powerful techniques for finding and working with information. However, the goal here is that you understand the kinds of things that are possible with regular expressions so that you can come to me offline on the bulletin board and say, I want to do this. Can you provide me with a pattern that would allow me to do that? And then I can give you the content that you need here in order to do that work. So if I want to take a link that says Yahoo and links to www.yahoo.com and turn it into Yahoo with, in brackets, the website address beside it, that's something that I can do with regular expressions very easily. And because that's something I think would be very common for people to want to do, we've provided it here in the page help so that all you have to do is open up the page help and you can copy and paste this into your print profile in order to make this work. In the page help itself, I'm suggesting that the place to get help on regular expressions is the bulletin board, because there is not an expectation that you as a regular user of CIOC would understand how this works. Although, as I say, if you're interested, this is something that's very, very common, and there's lots and lots of documentation on how regular expressions work. So there's no shortage of information out there to teach you how to do this if you're interested. But you don't need to learn. If you're willing to just say, this is what I'm trying to accomplish, I'm committed to indicating to you how that's done. And over time, hopefully, we would be able to accumulate some more examples that we can provide in the page help or other places for people to use if they all want to do the same kinds of things. What else could you do? You could look for an accessibility field that said fully accessible and replace it with an image of a wheelchair. That's one example. There's lots and lots of things that you can do using this, this tool and this technique to make your print reports really sophisticated and interesting. Is there a question first? No?
Is there a way to strip the HTML out of just an update?
That's a totally different, is there a way to strip the HTML out of just an update? That's a totally different thing. No, there isn't. No, there isn't at the moment. And do you mean before they edit it or after they submit it? I know there have been requests that the public not see HTML when they're updating the information. The problem with that is that then you lose all that formatting when they present that suggestion to you. So the general policy should be that you shouldn't be using HTML in your descriptions except where absolutely necessary. HTML in any of your fields really should not be all that common. Truly, that it should not be that way. It should be an exception and not a rule. So it shouldn't be something that you run into in any extreme way. We're getting totally sidetracked here. But with any future large-scale development we're doing with the software, I can guarantee you that we would be providing an interface that was more public-friendly for managing formatting in these fields. Similar to the kinds of formatting tools that are available on forums and bulletin boards and other commonly used systems for dealing with this kind of formatting. So it would no longer be HTML, it would be some other kind of markup, and there would be tools available for dealing with the formatting. But that's not what we have right now. Okay, I wanted to end with a final note. When I was setting up my my little XML export, I found that because I was doing it with the thought of, let's make mailing labels with that access document that I created. And I'll go back into it now. I was specifically thinking, wouldn't it be useful to be able to create mailing labels, and so I wanted to be able to include the contact name. And by default, the contact name for print profiles is the same as the contact name that you display in your record details, and it includes the phone number and the email address and other information that isn't very useful if you are trying to produce mailing labels where you only want their name. So for my own purposes, I went in and I added to the available list of fields for print profiles the contact name one field all by itself. And I wanted to make it really clear that that is a really simple thing to have done. And I am certainly committed, if anyone puts in a request that they need to have access to a certain part of a field, for any field that has more than one part to it, such as the source field, the contact field, and so on, where we can identify more than one field within the base table that's represented in the entire field being printed in, say, the record details page, I can make available just the part that you need, such as just the contact name or just the source name, by itself for the purposes of making print profiles. So it is my plan to, at some point in the near future, to make all of the contact names and source names to begin with available on their own for the purpose of creating print profiles. And if you run into any cases outside of the contact and executive and source names where you would like to have access to a portion of the field in a multi-part field, you can let me know, because that's a really, really simple thing to do that we can make it available just for the purpose of generating these print profiles. Just in case we have people who have never done mailing labels before, we do often get requests of, oh, I want to make mailing labels, can we have that in CIOC? And the major challenge with that is CIOC is a web-based tool, and it is extremely difficult to have consistent formatting for printing in a web-based tool using only HTML. And there are certainly sites that will make use of PDF generators and other things to try and create things like mailing labels and other print reports such as that. But I would encourage you, now that you know that you can get your data out of CIOC and use it in other ways, whether that's with your download or many, many other ways that you can get your data out of CIOC into Excel, into Word, into Access, that both Microsoft Word and Microsoft Access have label tools in them. And if you get your data into Access, like I have here, you can use that with a word merge, or you can use the label tool that's built into Microsoft Access. Simply specify the Avery label number or dimensions of your label, and it will automatically allow you to lay out your mailing labels and print them appropriately without it needing to be in the software directly. So if I take my set here and I say I want to do, I'm using 2003, but you know, there are obviously the same kinds of features in the newest version of Access, and definitely there are the same features in older versions of Access. But you can do a new label wizard. Simply specify the table where the data is coming from. You choose your Avery label number. Here, I'll pick this one. I'm just randomly picking one. You pick your font, your color, etc., and then you print the fields that you want. So I can say I want contact, and then I want a new line, then the organization name, and then the address. Next, what order do I want them to occur in? Doesn't matter. Here we go. And there we go. It's printing out my mailing labels. That's it. That is how simple it is to make mailing labels. And you can do it. It's so fast, in fact, that you don't even need to save this. This is something you can do on the fly at the moment that you need to do them. It's that easy to generate mailing labels. Does anyone have any questions about mailing labels? And I get that question so often that if I haven't demonstrated well enough how to do it, I'm really happy to give more information.
You can do it out of the search results as well.
Oh yeah, as Chris was just saying, I mean, I did this using XML and getting the data in through a print profile, but you can just do this out of your search results by using the process that we showed of saving it as an HTML file and then importing it into Access, or opening it in an Excel sheet. And the label wizard that I've used in Access, there's a really similar one in Microsoft Word that allows you to do a mail merge that would connect to an Excel spreadsheet or an Access database, which would also allow you to do this. The only advantage that we've got here with the report that I produced here is it does that automatic check of, you know, is there a mailing address that I should use in preference to the site address? But that's a really easy thing to query as well. So it is possible to do that offline using other methods. And as a worst-case scenario, you simply produce one list of the records that have mailing addresses and create the labels using the mailing address. And then you do another report of all of the records that do not have a mailing address, and you use the site address. That's a worst case if you really can't cope with any of the more sophisticated methods for sorting through which address to use. In the worst case, you do one query in CIOC and say, show me all of the records that have a mailing address, and export, the contact and the mailing address, whatever you need for that, okay? And then you do another one, or you can do a query using your download too, remember? And then you can do another one that is just your site addresses. And the label wizard is extremely easy to use. I hope I showed you that just now. And the mail merge in Word is also very easy to use. And the advantage of both is if you want to directly update or modify the data in the underlying database, every time you run the report, it would use the most up-to-date data in the data source that it's referencing. So, for instance, if you create a Word document that mail merges to an Excel spreadsheet that you've created, if you want to then refresh that Excel spreadsheet, save over it with a newer version, the next time you open your mail merge document, it's going to refresh. You can force it to refresh to the latest version of the data from that Excel sheet. Chris is just pointing out that if you don't use Microsoft Office, that there are similar tools in other Office suites like OpenOffice, which is free. If I have not answered any question whatsoever that you have about printing, getting your data out, anything like that, please let me know. And if there isn't anything else, then we're wrapping up. Please use the bulletin board. Use the page help for the print profiles especially. There is extremely good detail, better than what I've been doing today in the midst of my chaos of things not working. Much more well thought out and ordered and structured information in the page help. It's absolutely up to date. I do keep it up to date, so use that as a reference as you're making these print profiles. They are really helpful. If you find that the information in the page help is not sufficient, please let me know. Post on the bulletin board or email me or whatever you need to do. And if I need to provide more detailed information in the page help, I will absolutely do that. Okay. And I will resolve whatever is making me unable to add new fields to my print profiles and make sure that that isn't something that's affecting anyone else. My copy of the software is a different copy than what everyone is running. It's the most up-to-date one, so it may not be affecting any of you, but I will make sure of that so that if there is a problem with adding new fields to anyone's print profiles, that I'll fix it immediately. Okay? All right. Thanks very much.